Welcome, Solarah here. I hope you guys are doing well today. I'm here to do a reading for you, and I think I'm actually going to be going into my Moonology Oracle tonight because the lunar energy, the planetary energy is crunk right now in general, but the lunar energy has been really speaking to me. We're less than 24 hours as I record this. It's Wednesday evening, the 24th of January, so we are less than 24 hours out from this full moon in Leo, which is very intense. Anytime the moon is in Leo or the sun is in Cancer, I like to say there is this opportunity for like eclipse-like energy. And so the full moons in Leo, I find, always come with a lot of possibility for clearance. And I would say it's very interesting because I just thought about this. I've been speaking on my Substack about some of certain timelines that are reopening, and I've been speaking to clients about this too. Like, there seems to be the energy of now feels very much to me like 2020. January of 2020, right before we went into lockdown in March. And even back then, I wasn't one who indulged in mainstream media and watched the news, so I really didn't know what was happening, because I have long known that these people use fear to try to get us to feed their agenda. So I already was not tuned into the news like that. So I was not aware of what was brewing, so I was kind of laissez-faire about the whole thing. But I do remember the energy of the time just felt like, it felt like right before the clouds burst with rain. That's kind of what it felt like. And what I mean by that is it felt like something had to give. There was going to be a shift. And I'm feeling that again now. I've been feeling it since the beginning of this year. And as such, I would say that a lot of the energy from 2020, those old timelines, is open right now. And I have my theories about that, and I'll get into that in a second, as well as 2022. But before I get into that, I want to not forget to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. Welcome if you're visiting for the first time. And if you were resonating with the title, I invite you to chill out and see if you vibe with my energy, my methodology, and the way I impart the messages I've been given. And welcome if you're returning. Welcome if you've been here from the beginning, if you're one of my old heads, or if you joined along the way. Thank you for being here. I invite you to do the YouTube thing if you feel so led to do it, to subscribe, to like, to share, to comment. And for those of you who want to know when I post, you can hit the notification bell too, yada, yada, yada. So now that's out of the way. Let me think, are there any more announcements I have for you before I get into this? I don't think I do. I will be releasing I will be putting into my Ko-Fi shop the entire 2024 Tarot Astrology Ascension Report. I've been putting it together over the past few days and going over it again. But I will be making that available as of the weekend, but I will let you know on the community board, okay? So that's like the only update I have right now. Yes. Okay, so the 2020 and the 2022 timelines, and why my guides have been showing me the congruence with what we're feeling right now and going through. So back in 2020, we were coming online, and this is why they decided to create the circumstances that would up the global fear factor in order to, in a desperate attempt to lower the frequency of the planet. And the funny thing is that they did this in various steps. So what we came to know as lockdown was one of them, right? And because at the time the North Node was in Cancer and the South Node was in Capricorn, which is when they really love to do these global things, because of the fact that Cancerian and Capricorn energy are over the dragon lines of the earth. They're over the mother energies of the earth, over the waters and the earth energies of this earth, and they organize and ground and provide the energy necessary for whatever frequency the earth is going to hold, low or high. Because that is the case, they like to work a lot on this axis to do this kind of fuckery where they're feeding the grids with lower vibrational energies, specifically fear. So because of that, when we had the new moon in Cancer, I think we had 2 new moons in Cancer that year, we had in that eclipse window, was when a lot of the craziness was happening stateside with all of the racial injustices, which of course was once again planned in certain places to feed the grids. Okay? Now, what many of you may have experienced throughout that period of time, you know, from 2020 right up until, from the beginning of 2020 right up until the fall, was you might have started, you know, coming back online. Back then, I wasn't anywhere near as aware of who I am and how I work and what this was all about as I am now, but I know in my meditation time, I saw my Merkaba come online. I was able to call my divine masculine back to me through that Merkaba, and it was all spontaneous. It happened. I was taken there in meditation. I saw him in dream time. I ran into him in the middle of the lockdown out of nowhere. And things began to, densities that had kept us apart started to shift. Now, what occurred was then in October of that year, there was a lot of ritual work and fuckery based upon all of the layers of rituals that had already been done, that where they managed to get us back into their false web. That's how I was seeing it. It was like a false web. And as such, many of us began to suddenly like lose everything that we'd gained through the lockdown period, where we were beginning to come back online. And that can mean a whole bunch of things. You might have like started to be more confused. The things that you were building that had been, you know, you were nurturing and you'd seen some growth, they may have fallen apart. If you were coming into union at the time, that may have fallen apart. The point is that things started to pick up for many of us because of what was happening in terms of the frequency of the planet, and then suddenly there was whoosh, constriction, and everything again fell. And there was a reason for that, because without that happening, many of us would not have woken up to the level that we needed to wake up to in any case. So there's always a divine purpose in this. Now, the 2022 timelines are important because, as I've spoken to you guys before, the full moon in Capricorn in July of 2022 closed out the karmic family contracts we had in the matrix across incarnations in this past cycle. And when I say the past cycle, I'm talking about the stories with these beings that have gone back to the days of Atlantis or to the previous golden age, which was the age of Leo. Most of us have been cycling through various timelines and incarnations with the same beings, different, different flesh suit, and not knowing it because the frequency of the planet was so constricted up until a few decades ago that we weren't able to access all of the cosmological data that would allow for us to see past the matrix fuckery. And that's what Ascension has been about. So in other words, when those contracts expired, the timelines that supported them began to collapse, and we began to have more access to the information surrounding the patterns, the cycles, the repetition, and even the fuckery that they were still enacting now, both in conscious and unconscious ways to keep us stuck. And that's where we began to unfold all of these stories, and how my channel started my desire was to get to the bottom of some of this. And so I explored a lot of those themes, you know, the karmic family energies, what they mean, why they're there, etc., etc. Now, with the last new moon in Capricorn that occurred at 20 degrees, it was closing out the time of being at war and warring against those energies or being stuck in those timelines. Now, what you need to understand and overstand is those karmic timelines were designed to produce war within you. They wanted you at war with self, because for as long as you're at war with self, you're feeding the grids those frequencies, and therefore we were helping to maintain the constricted energy on the earth that was barring us out of our ability to connect with all of the cosmological data we need in order to rise above this and leave this matrix. So the whole point was to put us in family situations and to have us repeating timelines, incarnations with these people, because the energy we shared with them would produce war within us, okay? And we would produce war within them too. That's how energy works. It's like an infinity symbol. What's happening to you or what someone else is doing to you, you're probably doing it to them too. Maybe not consciously or to the same extent, but it's an energy thing. Like, you're not compatible. So they're going to cause you to be at war with yourself, and you're going to cause them to be at war with themselves too. And the more that happens, the more for unconscious beings are going to try to, instead of doing the work within and quieting the war within, they project that onto us. And because a lot of us, those of us who are connected to, we are, divine beings, we're connected to the grid lines of the earth, and so we move largely in our feminine energy, and it's not to do with gender. And so we're largely receivers of this energy, okay? And we need to be receivers to anchor it in. And so a lot of the time, because of that, we were the ones who were receiving all of the shit, and it was supposed to be like that in order that we would then magnify it, because that's what we do. In our energy fields, we magnify that shit and we anchor it in through our own suffering, through horrible timelines that are created off of this mess, because we also were purposely not shown who we are and how we function as energetic beings. So the point of being in those situations was to have us at war with self. Now, when the contracts closed with the full moon in Capricorn, what then happened was those stories began to surface in order for us to come back into a state of peace by now seeing the cycles, because it's only by seeing it, knowing it, understanding it, that we can process it, integrate it, to let go. Because what we're not trying to do is continue dragging that story forward, because otherwise the story now has us captivated. The story has imprisoned us, because once you learn the information you need to learn from these painful cycles, it's just to integrate so you can process the wound. And to continue past that is to then pull yourself back into another cycle of war. And so the whole point of the full moon in Capricorn that occurred in 2022, between the new moon in Capricorn that just occurred, the last lunation, was to help us process those energies, process the wounds, so that we could come back into states of peace. We could clear our fields of those energies once and for all. And in that way, that's why the attacks were activations. Because every time they still would try to send their attacks, if we were wise, we were alchemizing that energy and we were moving higher. And the higher we move, the more we are able to climb into our true frequency, which is supported by love, right? Love and above. So, trusty vibrational scale again. We are here to live at love, joy, peace, enlightenment, and above. This is where we're supposed to stay, live, right? But, and we're only supposed to visit these lower energies to get back up here. Okay, so whenever we visit like guilt and shame, especially, that is to do with the fact that that's there to help us realize where we have gone against our own divinity. And we go against our own divinity when we harm ourselves, or when we harm other beings, or when we harm the earth. What we do to others, we're doing to self. What we do to the earth, we're doing to ourselves. And so the guilt and the shame is to make us reflect and to recognize we're wrong, so that we adjust ourselves and move back into a state of loving ourselves enough to correct not only the behavior, but what the root of the aberration to begin with, okay? So we were not designed to stay stuck in fear, shame, guilt constructs, because then we become stuck in cycles that we can't break out of. And the Matrix was a cycle that was designed for us not to break out of, so that we would stay in that cycle and we would decay. Because the truth of the matter is, we are not here to die by dis-ease. We're not here to die by sickness. That's not the plan. That was never the plan. The reason we acquired that was, well, we forgot how to look after ourselves, but more importantly than that, it's because we were stuck in a cycle, repeating the same cycle again and again. And you know, one of the best analogies I can use for this is that if you go to a freshwater spring and you drink and you get that water, it's pure, right? And you can drink that water and it will nourish and purify you, right? But if you take that same glass of water and you put it on a desk and you just leave it there for days, for weeks, for months, that water will, the life will begin to leave that water, and it will even begin to stagnate. Okay? We're not designed to be stuck in a cycle. We're designed to be ever moving through cycles. Excuse me. We're designed to be ever moving through cycles. And that's part of our rejuvenation factor. Okay? So, excuse me. So, as divine beings, we have the ability to constantly rejuvenate ourselves, and even our biology shows us that. But when we are living stuck in a time warp, our rejuvenation cycles slow down, because we're not pushing past the cycle that allows our rejuvenation to take on the next state or the next level, if that makes sense. So when the new moon in Capricorn came, it was time to shift out of those old timelines, because now not only have the contracts been closed out, the new moon in Capricorn was the start of a new age. For as long as we're ready to align with those energies by choosing love, okay, by choosing peace, by choosing what nurtures us, what grows our value, as opposed to giving away our energy to things, beings, causes that not only don't they value us, but they don't replenish us, right? So that's what that was about. So in that sense, also, we are still dealing with 2022 timelines, because what also, another 2022 theme or story, 2022 was when a lot of those karmic family and karmic energies began to go harder. And some of them it was conscious, many of them it wasn't conscious. It's just living unconsciously and being overrun by energies and entities that have always been working through these lines, and certain beings not realizing that they've left their fields completely open to be used in that way, and thinking the whole time it's them, you know, it's their animosity towards you or whatever, and really they're being run by a whole like bunch of entities. But that's a whole other, you know, story. But the point is that in 2020, when that constriction energy began to come back onto the planet in October of 2020, a lot of the karmic family and the karmic stories and the karmic attacks went up a notch. Okay, they didn't only go up a notch, but we also began to become consciously aware of the energies around 2020 a lot of the time. And then in 2022, many beings were slated for unions, divine contracts, all manner of things that as they started to come through, it caused these contracts that closed out with karmic energies to want to intercept and stop those from happening. Okay, so now because we're truly moving into divine contracts, go on. For as long as we're ready to surrender into peace and love within self, those contracts are actually coming forth, and they can't be stopped at this point. The only ones who can really stop this from happening at this point is self, which is why we have to be so aware of how we internally align with the true alchemy of who we are, as opposed to still playing into these ego games that are very subtle and that are very covert, and they're all the traps and the ways that the Matrix like to program us into further states of devaluation. And again, that's what this year is about. This year is about overcoming, well, one of the themes of 2024. It is that number 8 theme, and of course the number 8 is the infinity symbol also when you put it on its side. It's about, and I've spoken about this I think in the first video of the year, if you're not aware, I did speak about the separation that's occurring because of the different energies at different polarities and the two worlds that are already in existence together, and what's going to occur with the split. Now I just lost my thought. Oh, so 2024 is about that number 8, or the infinity symbol, right? The 8 on the side. And the number 8 in the tarot is connected to the Leo energy of the Strength card. But of course, Leo energy is 2 cards in the deck, Strength and the Sun. And the fact 1919 on my clock as I said that, and my phone beeped. That's amazing. Let's see if I can show you. You see? 1919. Anyway, 19 is the Sun card. It's a Sun card in the tarot. But the fact that we are dealing with Strength card energies, as well as the Star, which is number 17, and it's Aquarian energy, shows us that what this year is about overcoming the wounds of the golden age of Leo that caused us to give away our godhood to begin with. And anytime we give away our godhood, it's because most of the time we get stuck in ego games and dynamics. And ego is expressed anytime, false ego, because our ego is also there to protect us. It's connected to our pride, and we are supposed to rise up in our pride when something tries to demean us and make us small without rhyme or reason. But other than that, we're not supposed to live constantly in a state of pride or in a state of ego. Now, when we are living out of balance with our ego and we put it on the throne of ourselves as opposed to being God over self, we are believing stories, narratives, themes that have us either believing we're above people, we're superior, or we're below. And in that state of feeling like we're above is when beings want to try to play God over others. And in that state of feeling like we're below is in that place where we want other people or other external energies to play God for self. We don't want to take responsibility because we don't think we have the power to. Okay, now these are both expressions of, these are both energies that are very magnified through the sign of Leo in its woundedness, because Leo is about the expression of your godhood. It's your heart energy and your solar plexus energy. So this is a quick recap. This year is what those themes are dealing with how we let go of these stories and narratives that have had us cycling through living in our egos, and it's our egos that therefore then create the false personas and identities of the matrix that they needed us to be in order to harvest. So now we're dealing with letting go entirely of those stories in order to rise into our new stories of love. And this is what has been being felt so intensely over the past week. Now, I think the last time I was here, it's Wednesday, I think it's been about 8 or 9 days since I posted here. And I know that last week was very intense as we moved up to the 0 degree Aquarius energy where the Sun and Pluto were meeting, right? And before that, I know that Venus was showing up a lot to help us in that transition. And I know last week I spent a lot of time in the water. Whenever we're birthing something big, they call me into the water. So 3 days in a row last week, I was in the water doing meditation work. And there were times when the energy was light, and there were times when the energy was very heavy. And I just want to remind you that when the energy gets heavy, it's not an indication of going back. It's an indication of pushing through a density that's either you've already gone higher and you're trying to stay where you no longer belong, and so that's going to feel uncomfortable, and so it's going to feel constricting, or you're pushing through a density to go higher. Those are the two times, especially, where energy will appear, will feel heavy, and a lot of the time, because it feels heavy, we will think that it's a form of regression when really we're pushing through something. And if we buy the narrative that we're regressing, then that's what we create, because that's how fucking powerful we are. But if we're aware that the energy is heavy because we're actually ascending, it's like when you're on a plane and you get into a pocket of, turbulence, right? It's kind of like that. So, especially when you are, when you're ascending, when you're going up, right? When you're going up, you have to adjust at every level to the altitude and to the atmosphere. And sometimes a plane is quite unsteady until the pilot finds that sweet flying spot where now you may remove your seatbelts kind of energy. And I don't know if it's safe to remove our seatbelts. I think it is, but it's going to be different for all of us because we're all going through these energies in different ways. But last week was really about letting things land. On Saturday, I woke up with this overwhelming, in the best way, feeling of connectedness and love. And I have to say that it was partly brought on by just a beautiful conversation I had with someone. He's not a stranger, but he's not like someone I talk to often. But I ran into him on Friday and we had a really beautiful conversation. And what it made me realize was that ascension is happening for those souls who have an open heart, even if they're not aware they're on a spiritual journey. It was just beautiful because I don't think he's a person who would classify himself as being especially spiritual. But what he was telling me he's been through in the past 2 years was very much connected to the energies of the ascension. So anyway, so I woke up on Saturday morning and I was kind of musing a little bit on that conversation as well as other things that were going on. And I just felt like, wow, our sameness is coming back online. And what I mean by our sameness is that, and I wrote an article on this, I think I posted the link. It was called It Is Our Time, I think that was its title. And I began to just feel this sense of, wow, we are beginning to realize we're more alike than we are different. Every ego story in the Matrix designed to keep us in fear of one another was designed to make us feel like we're at war, like there's always something different. You know, especially the more traumatized we were relationally, the more we sought out the things that were wrong with beings. It's a reflection of war. You know, like with when you, like, almost like hypervigilance. You know, like when you grow up in an environment where you constantly have to read the energy of the person or the authority figure, because you never know, you know, what you're going to do to set them off, kind of thing. Which is also your clairsentience. Hypervigilance is being able to respond, but we're responding a lot of the time we're looking for negative cues in order to protect ourselves. And so the more traumatized we've been relationally, the more we step into situations. I know I can say it because I've been through these trauma betrayal cycles way too fucking much. So a lot of the time now, because my guard was so low before, because I didn't realize this was the case, I become hyper vigilant in those situations. I start to look for the flags. You know, before the flags start to show, if there are any flags, I'll find them. And sometimes things are not flags. Sometimes they're just people being people, you know, and being a little bit unconscious, and we're all so-called guilty of that, right? So, but I find that it's a pathology that has become very much alive since COVID and since all of the separation that's been created collectively through people's choices concerning, you know, their own sovereignty and what they do with their bodies and what they're choosing to align themselves with politically, etc., etc. There's so many narratives that are purposely designed to keep us looking for what is wrong with another person, or ways that we're better than another person, or ways that we know more than another person. That was an energy that was coming through very strongly through the Mercury retrograde. We were being shown all those ways where we do that and we're not aware through the Mercury retrograde energy to prepare us for this. And that is that 30 minutes in, that is that the new moon in Cancer, not the new moon in Cancer, when the moon entered Cancer yesterday in its waxing state, the first time it's entered Cancer since the full moon at the end of last year, it brought with it this torrent of emotional energy. Now, Cancer energy, again, is connected to the mother grid, the motherboard. It is the foundation upon which the emotional resonance of the planet is formed. The Cancerian energy is connected to the dragon lines, as is the Capricorn energy in a different way. So the Cancerian energy holds the emotional memory of all of the cycles we've been through on the planet. Okay, so as such, as we've been clearing these energies and cycles out of our fields, the Cancerian energy, every time a planet's in Cancer, it tends to deal with our limbic and our glandular system. It tends to deal with all of those places where we've been physically storing the fear stories, the fear narratives, the results of the betrayal and the painful cycles. It expresses itself in terms of its foundation through Cancer. And then it begins to express itself in how we express ourselves through Leo. And then Virgo comes to try to pull us into emotional order by using our mind. So Virgo is the sign that really begins to help us delve into levels of emotional intelligence based upon our ability to make sense of our emotions. That's a whole other, we could go down that. That's a whole other rabbit hole. But when the moon moved into Cancer yesterday, a lot of the stories from the beginning of the Matrix, the root energy of the love stories that became cycles of betrayal started to show up in our reality. And what I mean by that is that it's not necessarily the person, although some of you might have had that you might have been dreaming about certain people, but it's not necessarily just about the person. It's about the, you could say it's about the relationship or the relationships that began the descent. There was something about the moon moving in Cancer yesterday where I began to feel like the root energies that began our descent into lower relational dynamics, you know, where we're forever chasing love and other people and all those other stories of the Matrix. They began to shift out of us. And I do believe that because it's the first moon in Cancer since the full moon, we may have felt it more intensely, but I do believe as the moon enters into Cancer every month until the new moon in Cancer, it's going to be doing a work in clearing out the foundational root central energies, the ones that formed the story cycles at the start, at the start of the Matrix and the close of the previous Golden Age. We are being helped to clear those root energies because now it's time to love. And now it's time to learn to love. This is what Cancer is showing us. It's showing us how to learn to love past our fear, past the betrayal, past the old stories that want to keep us in constricted energy. Because every time we draw back in a situation when we're supposed to be expanding, whenever we constrict, we're constricting into fear. We're moving back into fear. We're moving back into guilt. We're moving back into shame. And Cancer wants us to stop doing that. Cancer energy, as it's working now through the planets, as they express themselves through Cancer at any time, it's helping us to be safe in ourselves enough to be safe with one another. And this was the theme of Cancer season. If you go back to the videos I was doing in Cancer season last year, I was talking about that a lot, about how the Cancer, the energy of Cancer season last year was all about us reacclimating our fields to no longer allow those situations that dysregulate our nervous system. So now we've been going through that from the new moon in Cancer last year up until the full moon in Cancer, and it feels like from the full moon in Cancer, which was the last full moon, up until the new moon in Cancer, we're continuing to do that, but now it's a little bit different because now we are also introducing new love stories. And in the introduction of new love stories, we will also be confronted with those places where we want to pull back, and we have to learn to push past and into love. And what I mean by that is a lot of the things that had us in runner mode when it came to love had to do with the programming of those betrayal cycles. So, for example, I'll put myself out there, and I talked about it in my Word for Your Day yesterday. I had a situation with a person, and it felt so beautiful, so pure, and I wanted to dissect it and find out, well, should I be feeling this way? And I wanted to intellectualize. The Virgo in me wanted to make sense of it, right? And so, I went into meditation, and I began to see the organic energy that I'd shared with this person was just love. It was just pure. It wasn't, there was no coercion in it. It was just the experience of being with a person and enjoying them, right? And the fear story, based upon all of the narratives I've learned about love and the experiences I've had, wanted to dissect it, not only to find what was wrong with it, but also to figure out how to navigate. And, you know, it was like I wanted to intellectualize something that's not supposed to be intellectualized. I wanted to use my Libra energy in ways that was not going to be helpful to me. And the Libran energy is all about taking your mind and allowing it to align with your heart instead of using it to overwrite your heart. The Matrix taught us to overwrite our hearts with our minds. So what I mean by that is, if I just stayed in the feeling instead of questioning it, instead of dissecting it, instead of trying to figure out things that didn't need to figure out, just staying in the moment, in the feeling, in the love, that's all that was required. And when I realized what I was doing, I began to see, oh, we're learning how to move in the context of new love stories, because we've had so many old love stories that have been dashed by distortions, illusions, spell work. Fear is all fear. All that stuff is fear, you know? And we're learning how to overcome the fear story so that we can have access to the love story in organic form. You know, we're taking back the garden. We are, and that's another story that kept coming up for me yesterday was, and I began to write on it. I'll be posting it on my Substack. I'll let you know on the community board when I do, but started to write this article called Taking Back the Garden, because that's what it feels like we're doing right now. We are learning how to go back to organically loving. We're learning how to go back to when we were innocent and we hadn't been like wounded by these perpetual cycles of the Matrix that were designed to damage us to a point where we get to this low state of hopelessness, complete hopelessness, because in my opinion, complete hopelessness is a place where we abandon ship. That's complete hopelessness, and that was the purpose of the Matrix, to get more of us to abandon our ships, okay? And so we're learning now how to love. I don't know how else to say it. What we've been doing up until this point, we've been hurting ourselves and hurting one another, trying to get our needs fulfilled outside of where we should have been getting them. We've been trying to hold people into situations that are not in alignment with their own soul and within their own story. We've been dragged into believing certain things about love and how we're supposed to behave in love and act in love and institutionalize love, and it's all bullshit. You know, I was sharing with a client a few days ago that marriage is a form of bondage. I don't care what you tell me at this point, and that's not to say that two people can't come together, but when you look at the sacrament and the rituals around marriage, then you begin to realize it is a form of bondage. It's supposed to bind two people together, but really what it's also supposed to do is it's supposed to ritualistically have a woman give away her divine power to her husband, which is why it even tells you this in the Bible. If you read it, it tells you that you're supposed to not only submit to your husband, but even look at wedding vows and how, you know, up until recently, women were saying that they promised to love and obey their husband because we were stepping into a contract where we were making our husbands masters over us on an energetic level. Right? So you take your husband's name. You become submissive to your husband. He becomes your master. And he becomes a master over your energy. That was the point. And the truth of the matter is that it is women and feminine energy, because feminine energy is the expression. Women are the physical embodiment and expression of feminine energy, right? But we all have feminine energy, right? So, but it's through feminine energy that we connect to the cosmos. It's your feminine energy that makes you intuitive. The intuitive centers The third eye and the sacral chakra are feminine energies. So if you can ritually on the earth planes take the material embodiment of feminine energy, which is a woman, and put her under the mastery of a man, because it was never meant to be that way. We were just supposed to work in balance together in accordance with our own powers and strengths. When you do that, you are closing a woman off energetically from being able to access her intuitive power. And I'm not saying that's what's happening now, but I'm saying that was the root and the foundation as to why they created marriage and its accompanying sacraments. Okay, because here's the truth, and this is what the age of Aquarius is about to wake up, and some people ain't ready for this. And I've been saying this for a while, and people would look at me like I had 5 heads. Maybe I do. Anyway, the truth of the matter is, not all of us are supposed to be monogamous, and not all of us are supposed to be here together until death do us part, another binding. You get what I'm saying? People are supposed to be free. Love is supposed to be love is supposed to be how we desire to see another being evolve into their greatness and godhood. And if that is truly the premise of love, then love also knows when to walk away, because another person is hindering our ability to do that, or we are hindering them. And because we live in an infinity loop where when you are intimately involved with another being, the energy you share, you're constantly mirroring one another. Whenever one of you is ready to evolve, the other one is too. Now, whether the other person wants to admit to it or not is another thing. And this is what we have to learn. We have to learn how to let things go and let things die when they expire in order to stay in the frequency of love. You see, fear wants us constantly holding on to things, holding on to people. When I first decided to let go of many people in my life in accordance with my guides, because my guides first and foremost removed the people in my periphery, meaning they removed the people who were a threat to me indirectly. They didn't come first for the ones who were direct threats towards me. They came first for the ones who were indirectly a threat, meaning that they too easily fall under the spell of those who were a direct threat. And when I first confronted one person and I said to them that, I was considering our relationship and the fact that it just wasn't fruitful. It wasn't fruitful for me and it wasn't fruitful for them. This person tried to argue and insult me into staying with them. To me, it's crazy. You want to hold on to someone and convince them that you're supposed to have a relationship with them. This isn't romantic, by the way, this is familial. You're trying to convince me that I'm supposed to have a relationship with you, but you're insulting me, you're yelling at me because you don't like me and you don't want to admit it because it's going to destroy your own ego story, right? So I told this person, I said, listen, there's so much shit that we've done to each other that I'm not ready to process. I don't want to sit down in therapy with you. It's not worth my time. I'm going to be completely frank. It's not worth my time to sit in therapy with you because I have to direct that energy towards healing myself and my children. And you deserve to be loved. And I'm not capable of doing that because of everything we've been through. I'm not capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved in an intimate one-to-one relationship. I'm not. And if I'm not capable of loving you, you're not capable of loving me. And I already know that, but let me just try to spit it at you in a way that you get. And they still didn't get it. They didn't get that my letting them go and walking away was an act of love for self, and it was the final act of love, true act of love I'd ever gifted them, because I wasn't equipped to love them. And it's wrong to hold on to something or somebody that you can't love under the pretense that you do. What a fucking waste of time in life. What a fucking waste of your divine resources. Fuck no. Fuck no. You know, so, but we were all taught to do that. That was part of the Matrix lie, to hold on to people. Loyalty, family, blood is thicker than water, and all this other shit that they try to spell cast and spellbind us into. And the truth of the matter is, we're all here to love one another. And we're all here on different soul lessons. And every being that comes into our fields in love, we're not supposed to hold on to. They're not here with us forever. They could be there for a minute, a day, a year, a decade, 5 decades. But if at some point you're no longer evolving with them and they're no longer evolving with you, then it's love to part ways. And that is a mindset that baffles some people who were taught to constantly hold on in the name of love, in the name of it alone, and not the actual thing. You get what I'm saying? And then they also, you know, that they don't know how to love, because they don't even know how to love themselves enough to realize that you don't love them or that you're wrong for them. So Cancer, when the moon moved into Cancer yesterday, it's preparing us for this like grand heart and love detox at the same time. That's going to be, it's a love detox that's being, it's being activated through new love experiences that is going to cause us also to purge out these old energies. Okay, because the way we've been taught to love is not right. It's a fallacy. It is an insult to the sacredness of who you are. Okay. And the full moon in Leo is also assisting us with that in grand ways, of course. But I will get into that energy on my other channel, Solarah Rises. I'll do the full moon in Leo tarot astrology ascension report. Ooh, I feel chills. Ooh, I've been getting that a lot this week. It's like new energies are crystallizing. Our crystalline body is making very rapid shifts right now. So we got the new moon in Sagittarius. Luck is on your side. So, new moon in Sagittarius, I believe that happened on the 12/12 portal. Yeah, it was a 12/12 portal. We had the new moon in Sagittarius. And then we must have had the new moon in Capricorn on the 11th. Yeah, 11. On that other portal window, because I remember them both being portal days. So, let's see what comes out. Let's see. Look at this. Overarching theme. A new romantic cycle begins. New moon in Libra. All new moon energy so far. In the challenge position. Full moon. Surrender to the divine. This is showing me that this is confirming what it is I was already saying. The beyond the new moon in Sagittarius being, the 12/12 portal, and it was a moon that probably spurred a lot of this on too, because that's how they all work. But the Sagittarian energy is a liberator. It's the energy that liberates you into your divine truth. It's the energy that liberates you into your authenticity. And then Aquarian energy is how you begin to take that out in the world with groups, and how you begin to use that authenticity to bring humanity back into alignment. Okay, but the break into that, into authentic living, comes through Sagittarius. Okay, so this is interesting. We do have new moon in Libra. A new romantic cycle begins. I was saying how this Cancerian energy was very connected to the Libran, to the balancing of the Libran energy, where the Libran energy helps us to stop talking ourselves out of our heart's truth with our own minds. And here it is. So we have surrender to the divine, full moon in the challenge position. There is that resistance when something is being taken from us or purged. Even though it has to go, there's a resistance that comes, and this is where the heaviness comes in also. There's a resistance not because we want to hold on to the old, but because we become afraid of where it's taking us. So there is a, there's resistance that we're fighting through within this energy. I was feeling it earlier on today. There is like that push-pull that has to happen as we choose to align with the higher ideal. And the only way we're able to align with the higher ideal is when we become conscious of the energy and we begin to delve in. I was sharing in yesterday's word for your day that this, as the moon is transiting through Cancer, reaching her full ripeness in Leo, that we're being invited to learn how to utilize the Cancerian energy, the Cancer medicine, for what it's here to do. And so I have a lot of Cancer energy in my chart, by the way, because I've been accused before of not liking Cancers or something. It's just like, no, dude, I just know your shadow because it's mine. So I'm going to help you free yourself of it by showing it to you. I'm sorry if you don't like to hear about that, but you probably got the wrong channel if you don't, because we're here about breaking into the fullness of our beauty, not repressing it. And this is the Cancerian energy. The Cancerian energy is so deeply emotionally connected. I have a darling boy whose sun is in Cancer, and that used to be one of his favorite lines, because we used to have this, I'm a Leo sun and he's a Cancer sun, and so we used to have this like battle, this like joking battle every year when I used to be on Instagram, on my personal Instagram. We do a story every year, the two of us, as Cancer season left and Leo season came on. I would put on like exaggerated Leo energy and be like, it's time for you crabs to get out of here. It's our time to shine. And we put on this little like we had this little joking skit going together. And he goes to me one year, and I'll never forget this. He goes, because we would do it quite like organically, right? He looked at me and he goes to me, and Cancers aren't crybabies. He goes, we are emotionally connected. I was just like, yeah, you are. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we are crybabies too. Don't get it twisted. Cancers, we are crybabies. Abso-fucking-lutely. I love a good cry. But it's because we are the first sign of the zodiac that connects to the waters. And as such, Cancer is your introduction to the waters, and Scorpio then has to take you into the depths so you master it, and Pisces is where we graduate. So the Cancerian energy, it's out of all of the water signs, it is the most emotionally immature. And not immature in like a really like a negative way. It just is the fact. It's the youngest of the water signs. It's learning its way through the waters. Okay? So, as such, this is why we need the other signs to help us to fully evolve into the maturity of the wholeness of who we are. We need all the signs to help us to do that. And so Cancer energy gives us access to the truth of our emotions. It doesn't necessarily always tell us how to deal with them. Pisces is good for that. And it doesn't even have to be a water sign. Virgo is great at organizing emotion, because Virgo is the, that's too much information. But Virgo is great for organizing emotional information. Virgo is great for organizing information, period, okay? Including emotional, but especially emotional information in its evolved state, right? Cancer energy gives you access to it. But here's the thing about Cancer energy also, is that Cancer is connected to the crab. And so what we do very good in Cancer energy is we can play the victim real well. When something hurts our feelings, instead of talking about it, we crawl into our shells, we give you the silent treatment, fuck a bunch of that, you ain't hurting my precious little feelings again. I'm going to go into my shell where you can't hurt me. And I'm going to go into my shell where you can't hurt me to stew over how you've hurt me and maybe even figure out a way to hurt you back. Okay? I'm just going to tell it like it is. I love the signs. I love their shadows. I find our shadows fucking hilarious. I love the shadow signs. I love the shadow energy of all signs because it's all part of us. It's all a part of who we are. Those aspects live within us all because we are the all. Anyway, so yesterday that Cancer energy was calling us into retreating into our shells, but for the right reason. And this is where the Cancer and the Virgo energy actually work together. The Virgo energy is the hermit, right? But the hermit is also a crab. It's the hermit crab. It's connected. It's still very much connected. So what the Virgo energy teaches us to do is how to go within in order to find the light. We need the Virgo energy to help us to go within, to organize our emotions, to find out what they're actually speaking to us, as opposed to, the energy of Cancer will expose the emotion, but not necessarily tell you what it's about unless you consciously choose to go within. And so yesterday, the call was when you are triggered, when you are feeling something, when discomfort's coming up around a story, around a situation, especially when it has to do with relational dynamics, it's time now to go within and find out the genesis of the story. We're being given the genesis energies right now. The genesis energies are being cleared. And I've spoken about that. I can't keep up now. I think it was on Word for Your Weekend or Word for Your Day sometime last week. I spoke about, and I think I've spoken about it here too, the way that energy works. You know how like when you drop a pebble into the water and then you see the ripple effect go out and out and out and out and out? Energy works like that. Like those are cycles, you could say. Each ring is a cycle, like a tree. And we have been moving, like I said to you, my guides told me to first remove the indirect threats. So we've been working from the outside in. And now we're dealing directly with self first and foremost, but we're also dealing with the root energies that cause the ripple effect. So right now, when we are being triggered, especially in these new stories that are coming forth. And when I say new, it doesn't have to be a brand new story. You can also be going through a new chapter of love with the same people you've been in cycles with. Our relationships in love are evolving into higher states of love for as long as we're open. Okay, so when you are being triggered in these new energies of love, in these new stories of love, it's showing you how you've learned, it's showing us how we've learned to react and build walls and create fear dynamics, fear stories, frequency fences that we no longer need. Well, first and foremost, we shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. We were loving incorrectly and we were loving the wrong people. But now it's time to completely, not even dismantle those stories. We've been doing the dismantling. Now it's time to see how that story wants to continue. Isolate it, do the work and find out where your attachment is to the story. Because if it's still there, there's something that you need to process. Whenever we have attachment to something, attachment to an energy, it's just simply that there's something we need to process. We're not ready to let go because we need to process it. So people who keep on listening to the same karmic story or telling the same story, it's not that they like being victims per se all the time. It's that they haven't been able to fully process the wound, and so they're attached to it. Now, some people aren't aware they are, so you start to tell them you're attached to the wound, and they're like, wow, you're right, and that's all it takes. Other people need to keep on in that energy and to see it through, right? We need to process. what it is that we're attached to in order to let it go. We had to process, and this is how the planets help us. We had to first have the contracts in Capricorn, full moon in Capricorn in 2022 had to close out the contracts, and then came the time to process the wounds and the stories as they were being exposed. Now the new moon in Capricorn says that chapter is closed. It's time to still process the wounding, but you're processing the wounding as a new love story emerges, if that makes sense. So full moon in Capricorn, processing the story as the wounds are brought to light. Almost like, no, I won't go there. Anyway, processing the stories as the stories come to light, okay, in order to see the external energies that are keeping you at war. And now, new moon in Capricorn says, you've seen those energies, you've seen the cycles, now you're dealing with the root energies, processing that, your attachment still to pain, your attachment still to fear, your attachment still to suffering, your attachment to beliefs that you're not supposed to live beautifully and bountifully and abundantly. You are coming face to face with those things in self by way of beauty and love returning, so that you can put an end to the war, so that your true value can begin to flood and come alive in you again through the validation of why. But you still have to do the work. You still have to choose to believe yourself lovable, believe yourself worthy. I hope that makes sense. Wow. So this is what we're not seeing or what we need to be paying attention to. We have new moon eclipse. Expect powerful change. So I did mention that the moon in the sign that is ruled by the sun gives eclipse-like energy. Yeah. We're going through a portal right now that this full moon is assisting, as are, of course, the solar activations and all the other planetary alignments and transits. We're going through a cycle, we're going through a corridor. I don't know if it's a corridor. It's like we're not going through a corridor, we're entering a room almost at this point. We're crossing a threshold. That's what it feels like. We're crossing a threshold. And the crossing of that threshold is never going to be without, resistance, without fearing surrender, with this surrender to the divine card in the challenge position. But the fearing of the surrender is not because we don't want to. The fearing of the surrender is like, is it safe yet? Is it safe for me to just let everything go and be? Is it safe because I felt like I could do that before, or I was beginning to do that, and the bottom fell out? Or I've never felt like I've been able to do that. So is it safe? Is it safe to... It's almost like that Noah's Ark story where he sends out the crow, and the crow doesn't return, right? When he's trying to find out if the flood has gone down enough to come back onto land, and then he sends out the dove, and the dove returns with an olive branch, which is like a peace offering between the inhabitants of the ark and the earth, nature, and it's almost like that. Is it safe to come off the ark? It's as safe for us to come off the ark as we feel safe within ourselves. And this is what we're learning. These are some serious light body lessons that we're getting right now. The Cancer energy connects you to your light body. It's why in the tarot it's the Chariot, and the Chariot is pulled forward by a black and a white Sphinx. The chariot, your ability to move your light body is based upon your ability to, at every turn, balance the polarities within yourself in every situation to keep yourself living in love. It's love that pushes your chariot into more love. So it's up to you at every turn to alchemize the polarities within that keep you in a state of love to push your chariot forward. And that means at times you gotta use your dark energies. You gotta put motherfuckers in their place when they try to usurp your ability to ride your own fucking chariot. Hell yes, you know. But you also have to know when to concede and when to be gentle with yourself. It's like all of these things. We're learning how to love ourselves. We're learning how to love. These are all lessons in love. And the reason why the lessons in love are so important, it's so much deeper than coming together and, seeding these energies into the earth. You are love. So in order to be authentic, you must return to your state of being a love-based being. And you can only be a love-based being when you're balanced in your own energy, when you know how to balance polarities in order to create peace within yourself. That's how you move your light body in the direction that you want, as opposed to, not driving it into situations you want, or having other beings control your wheel, or having you abandon your ship. Wow, look at this. Confidence is your key to success. New moon in Leo. New moon in Leo. We've got all new moon energy and one full moon card here, and it's only in the challenge position. We've got the new moon in Sagittarius at the bottom of the deck. We've got the new moon in Libra in the overarching theme. We've got the new moon eclipse in what we're not seeing. And we've got the new moon in Leo in our guidance. This is about living from your heart. Leo energy is what connects us to our innocence. Pisces energy helps us to graduate into that place, but it's through the Leo energy that we begin to grapple with taking our innocence back. And Yeshua said, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven if you don't first become like a child. Okay, and there's so many reasons why he said that. There's so many things we can pull out of that one statement, right? But returning to innocence, that's what Pisces enables us to do. When we were children, we were born not liking ourselves. We weren't born with a low self-esteem. We weren't born with low self-confidence. We weren't even born with no lack of direction. We weren't. And you know how I can say that? Because when you were a baby and you were hungry, you cried. You didn't have to have an alarm tell you you were hungry. You were raw, you were connected to your needs, and you would articulate them in the only way you knew how. No mask, no repression. Those are all things that are learned. Those are all programs. And that's not to say we're supposed to be running around being completely, raw to the point where we're just, not nice to one or not considerate to one another. But you get what I'm saying? Like, we fenced ourselves in. And we fenced ourselves in because we were taught to do that. And when a child is guided instead of programmed and forced into states of performing and being in accordance with the whims and the desires of parents, society, etc., they will find their own path. A lot of the ways that children are raised in this matrix is out of parental fear. It's fear that is systemic, right? My child has to get this. If they don't get this, they're not going to graduate. If they don't graduate, they're not going to get into a good school. If they don't get into a good school, they're not going to do well on their SATs or A levels. And if they don't do well, do you see the what runs us? The fucking fear stories and programs. If they don't do, that's not a reason to do shit. That's not a reason to live. If I don't do this. Says who? Says who? And I know that's a really hard thing it's a hard thing for me, for me to come to terms with as a parent, you know? And we're going through an ascension, and I know these things, and it's still a battle for me. But the point of the matter is, we came here to love. Nothing more, nothing less. We came here to be ourselves. We are love. We are love personified. We are love incarnate. And we came here to experience that. Nothing more, nothing less. There's no other goal than that. And to go through the soul lessons that help us to magnify that. And when we are living in alignment with our ability to be who we are, to be love, the earth also is in harmony, because our emotions, our light bodies, are what run the grids. And when we are in love, doing what it is that we're supposed to do from love, we're feeding that into our earth. We're feeding her love. We're helping her to be in harmony. We're helping her to help us. And we lose that as children. We've lost that as children. We lose that to solar plexus programming. You know, through the solar plexus programming of parenting, the matrix system. I talked about this a lot in Leo season last year, about how family dynamics in the matrix are designed to take control of your solar plexus at a young age. And the thing about your solar plexus, it is the seat of your personal will. It's how you express divine will. Divine will comes through, the order comes through the throat, the expression comes through the solar plexus. You're silenced as a child at the throat. You're silenced, you're told you can't do this, what you're thinking is silly, grow up. All of these programs that were placed in, these boxes were placed into to get us to be the same, deactivates the divine will and message that's coming through our throat, because we're expressing who we are, whether people like it or not, which then gives someone else authority over our will. And we begin to make decisions, even as adults, that are based upon the deactivation of divine will and the will of those who silenced us. It's profound. And we're undoing this by coming back into our hearts, following our hearts, and choosing to do what puts us in a state of love. Love for self, love for one another, dismantling the frequency fences within that cause us to erect them without. And what I mean by that is, fear is what creates a frequency fence. It's always going to be fear. The root of the energy will always be fear. Right? A frequency fence is when a wall goes up between you and someone or something that shouldn't be there. Now, we should put up walls against energies that we don't want to be a part of our reality, right? But what we've been doing is we've been putting up walls that have kept us from experiencing true love and from experiencing the materialization of our truth and of our goals. We've been putting up our own walls that have kept us out of the garden. And now it's time to deactivate those walls. And those walls were always, like I said, they're frequency fences that are kept alive by fear. I can't love this person because if I love this person, what will so-and-so think? I can't do this project because if I do this project and I fall flat on my face, what is everyone going to think? It's amazing how so many of our decisions are run off of programs that are all about other beings' response to us because we were programmed into fearing external rejection instead of connecting with our divine will, which will tell you, fuck them, don't betray yourself. Fuck them, don't betray yourself. I'm going to say it one more time. Fuck them, don't betray yourself. Right? And we learn that as children. And we're taking back through this full moon in Leo and through the new moon in Leo last year, it's continuing. Because this full moon is in the lower degrees of Leo energy, so it's 5 degrees, and it's completing a story that began with the new moon in Leo in July of 2022. That new moon in Leo in July 2022 was at 5 degrees also. And this full moon in Leo tomorrow is at 5 degrees. We're completing an 18-month cycle of taking our hearts back, taking our solar plexus back, resurrecting our inner child in a different way is really what it is. But the new moon in Leo is also speaking about the golden codes. Golden codes are flooding our planet right now. They're coming through every possible portal of power. And we've had quite a few of them. So portals of power, if you look at it from the astrological side, and astrology just shows you part of the energy. It doesn't even show you the whole picture. That's the amazing part. And when you think about that, it should blow our minds. So we have a portal of power is a 0 degree mark, a 29 degree mark. Even the 11 degree mark is a degree of mastery. 22 degree mark is a degree of grounding, the mastery of a lesson. Right? So we had Venus move into Capricorn yesterday, that's 0 degrees. This is also about the grounding of the activations that came through the solstice, that have been coming through since the solstice. And the solstice is all about your 8-8 codes coming into maturity. And this is what this is about too. 8-8 codes from last year, which were very potent codes that came through at the start of the galactic new year, are coming online. But in order for your golden age codes, because that's what they are, these are your golden age codes, the first set of the golden age codes that came online last year. In order for them to be activated, you must dismantle the fear frequencies that keep you out of love. And they're not fear frequencies that are coming from without, although the energies from outside of you might be triggering you to show you where you still have fear. Where you have fear around receiving, where you have fear around love, where you have fear around abundance, fear around rejection, whatever your fear story is. We all have fear stories that are similar and yet they're different. The energies right now are showing you your fear story so you can dismantle the frequency fences that have continually supported the protection of it, if that makes sense. It's no longer time to protect the fear story. The fear story must be relinquished for the love story to rise. I'm also getting, well, this is probably a given, a very powerful Lyran and Surian energy. I'm picking up here. Pleiadian too. Arcturian. Yeah. And not for nothing, the Sagittarius energy. If you go back to the videos in Sagittarius season, I was explaining to you guys how Sagittarius is the sign through which heaven comes back onto earth. Sagittarius is Scorpio begins to activate our DNA, right? It begins to activate angelic codes, galactic codes, however you want to see it. A lot of angelic activations come through the Scorpio window, and then Sagittarius begins to, but let me try to explain this. The galactic codes, or the angelic codes that come through Scorpio energy, it's almost like they begin to be birthed, and through Sagittarius they are fired. And Sagittarius also they're fired into the earth planes almost. It's like Sagittarius creates the possibility, opens the window for those energies to be grounded onto the earth planes. And then Capricorn begins to help us to ground those energies. So Venus entered into Capricorn. I forgot, I didn't finish the major power portals that we've been experiencing. Venus entered into Capricorn at 0 degrees yesterday. We of course have the Pluto entering Aquarius on Sunday, the Sun entering Aquarius last Saturday. So all very prominent 0 degree energies that have happened within the past, 4 or 5 days, and then of course you constantly have the moon cycling through faster, and I forget where Mercury is right now, but I'll get into that again with the tarot astrology. So yeah, it's time to let love in, it's time to let love rule, with the very clear understanding and overstanding that as we do that, love is going to trigger and upset the fear frequencies. The frequency fences built by fear that are still supporting any energies within ourselves that are keeping fear stories alive, because those fear stories must die to liberate the fullness of the love story. I don't know if this is done. Which one? Let's go into the, well, no, because that's going to be, let's get a card from the Rose Oracle. I kind of want to go into the tarot. Let's go into the tarot. Let's go into the Starseed Tarot and let's see what we get here. Because I've already done oracles, so let's go. These cards are fucking huge, so bear with me as I try to, they're huge. They're really difficult to shuffle. Keep on cutting the cards at the Lovers and the Wheel. It's almost like things are collapsing into one. The collapse is part of the oneness. If that makes sense. I'll do it this way. 3 cards have come out. I don't know if I want to take them all. 6 of Crystals, 8 of Crystals, the Lovers, and the Six of Flames at the bottom, the Six of Wands, Leo energy. Six of Crystals is the Six of Pentacles, right? So that's Taurus energy. Eight of Crystals, Eight of Pentacles, Virgo energy, and the Lovers. But I don't want to take all those cards. This is amazing. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Eight of Flames. Okay? Look how that looks like a fucking portal. So here we go. Sagittarius energy again. Eight of Flames. This is 0 to 10 degrees Sagittarius. Okay? So the 0 to 10 degrees Sagittarius is when the Phoenix activations begin to take off. So the Phoenix activations for me, the way I read them is that through Scorpio energy, the third decan of Scorpio is when we begin to receive our Phoenix activations based upon the work we've done through Scorpio to unite our lower and higher selves into the oneness field, which is what allows the Phoenix to rise. Sagittarius is the expression of the Phoenix rising. So this is beautiful energy. Here we have, you see this picture? It's a portal. Oh, look, and then I lift it up, and what do we have here? Starseed. This is the returning to Earth. The returning to Earth, our return to Earth. What came out is 9 of Chalices. So this is all mutable energy we're dealing with. This is all integration also, Sagittarius, Pisces. Even the starseed is in this deck, the Fool, which is Uranian energy, but also Gemini. So it is mutable again also. So this is all about, like I said, it's collapsing and coming into one at once, all at once. Yeah. So this card, not this particular deck, but this card keeps coming up all week for me. Like literally, we had a storm here. My window flew open because it wasn't completely closed, and it blew my cards, and 9 of Cups smack on the middle of the floor. Kept on finding the 9 of Cups. 9 of Cups, of course, is Piscean energy, second decan of Pisces. Okay? So that's the new moon in Pisces coming up, because that new moon in Pisces is occurring right at the door of the third decan. I believe it's happening at 20 degrees. So it's as the second and the third decan merge. That's what we're dealing with. But here, this is a 9 of Cups. This is purely the second decan of Pisces, and it's the energy that speaks of, it's connected to Virgo, right? So it's something that we've done alone. It's a doorway we're going through alone based upon our ability to make choices that align with our heart's truth. The card that comes before this is, of course, the 8 of Cups. It's when we continually make a decision to walk away from that which may be very familiar, from that which may have even served us up until this point, but it no longer serves us moving deeper into our truth and our emotional fulfillment, so we walk away from it. And every time we make that choice, every time we choose our own betterment, enlightenment, authenticity, our own rising, we push ourselves into 9 of Cups state. And every time we move into the 9 of Cups state, we find the light to get to the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, because right after the 9 of Cups comes the 10 of Cups, okay? And following the 9s in the tarot, it's the 10, it's the Wheel of Fortune. It kept coming up on the split before. So every time we choose to align with what brings us personal fulfillment, even if it means sacrificing parts of self that we've been afraid to let die, or walking away from people, cycles, situations that don't align with us, we enter into the Nine of Cups. And it's so important. The Nine of Cups is the doorway out the matrix. And I say that because the doorway out of any cycle, including the matrix, which is just another cycle, the doorway out of any cycle is through Pisces. Everything is a cycle, like the pebble in the river that produces the ripples, the rings on the tree. I've likened this also to the clock. Every time you get to the 12, you break out into another cycle, into an hour, right? A new hour, right? So in order to break out of the matrix, you will always confront Piscean or 12th house energies and themes. This is the house of hidden energies. This is the house where the lessons of all of the previous 11 houses and signs must combine together for you to have the faith to push you through the energies that want to fool you, the shadow energies that want to fool you, the ones within and the ones without that are hidden and trying to bar your way. So in some ways you could say those be the frequency fences, okay? The fear-based frequency fences that we must overcome every time. And the fact of the matter is, the karmic people who were the hidden enemies were just the personification of the frequencies that were out of alignment already within self that we weren't seeing. And so in order for us to get a look at what was actually going on within our own energy field that kept us at war with self, we were producing these narratives and scenarios to wake ourselves up. This is how it all works together. It's never been like, oh, these matrix fuckery shenanigans are more powerful than us. No, we were creating them. We were creating them out of our own ignorance, but we were also creating them to wake ourselves up. Now we're up. We're up, we see. So now we need to identify, where are the hidden enemies within myself? Because it's those hidden enemies within self, those are the only things that have truly ever kept us out of breaking the cycle, breaking out of Pisces. It's truly that. All the ways we betrayed self. It's always been a battle with self, and those other external energies have just been playing back to you what was going on within your own energy. And now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of it, because it's time to break out of a grand cycle. And every time you break out of a cycle, I don't care how small or big the cycle is, you will confront Piscean themes. 12th house energies. The only reason you're in a cycle to begin with is because of things that you're not seeing that help you to graduate to the next cycle. Once you see what you need to see and you realign yourself, you're out. So for example, once I saw yesterday, I broke out of a cycle yesterday. I broke out of a cycle that for me goes back to Atlantis. But in this lifetime, it's still a cycle that's had me stuck. And it's still a small cycle also, because when you look at the energy, it's not very significant, but it was still the breaking out of many different levels of cycles through choosing something very simple. This is how simple it was to break the cycle. I chose to come back into my heart space and honor that love that I felt that was pure, instead of overthinking it and trying to convince myself it wasn't real, or trying to convince myself something was wrong, or trying to find a reason to begin to intellectualize that which was just supposed to be felt. And it was as simple as that. And the hidden enemy was the energy within that had kept me reliving fear stories, because in the past, instead of returning to love, I continued in the mind, continued to catastrophize, find reasons, go down places, avenues I didn't need to go down to, which took me out of the love. Hope that makes sense. Okay, now I feel good. I feel like I can wrap it up. If you've chilled with me this far, thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I invite you to like the video if you've made it this far, because I'm guessing that you did enjoy it. If you're still here with me, I'll see you guys again soon. Please Look out if you're interested for the full moon in Leo ascension report, which I will be releasing tomorrow at some point on Solarah Rises. If you'd like to support me on Substack or subscribe over there as either a free or a paid subscriber, the link will be in the description box below. If you would like to purchase my decrees or my sacred bathing manual, the link to my Ko-Fi shop is below. If you would like to tip me or treat me to a coffee, or help me to further my own mission, you can do so also through my Ko-Fi shop. The link to my Ko-Fi for donations is below. What else? I think that's it. Yes, I will have the 2024 full Tarot Ascension report for those of you who are interested. It will be joining my Ko-Fi shop by the end of the week or over the weekend. I want to put an extra edition in there also. So yeah, by the weekend, and that's it. Happy full moon in Leo. Spread the love, live in love, because that's who the fuck you are, okay? And that's how I'm going to end it tonight. Until next time, be well.